And then,
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. It's nice to be back on track again. Let's go ahead and open it up to any questions. Anything goes. You can unmute yourself or type in. Go ahead, fire away.
go ahead, Robert, then Sandra, then Chris.
Hey, Robert.
Good evening. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Thank you. Doing well. I know sometimes when we ask for protocols for a certain thing, it's not always possible to give a simplified protocol.
Right.
But I was wondering if, in the case of a traumatic brain injury, if there's a simplified one, or if there's some class we need to refer to with a very complex.
So a traumatic brain injury, meaning like a blow to the head or car accident, something like that?
Or a concussion. Someone falls and hits their head.
Yeah. And so like another one that I actually put into that sometimes in that genre is also severe allergic reactions sometimes can manifest, like actually with swelling in the brain or can turn into a brain injury. And
okay.
So, anything like that. So a lot of what you're dealing with there is you're dealing with swelling, the pulling of blood, and you're wanting to like after the swelling goes down and blood flow like regulates, you're also wanting to like kind of detox the brain a little bit. And so it right off the bat, like the brain injury right off the bat, you're just trying to stabilize the person. And so usually with something like that, I go to things like black cumin, yarrow, German chamomile. You could use dark blue tansy. I would probably do the German chamomile or the yarrow first, but sometimes you got to work with what you got. You know what I mean? Especially something like that. It's not like you can go, okay, give me a couple of days and let me pull it together. You know, you're usually needing to treat right there, right then. And
right.
So the black cumin I would give internally. The yarrow, the German chamomile, I would do internally, but I would also start to like rub it on the neck and the chest if that's at all possible. And then one of the things that I think gets like a little bit overlooked with brain injuries is respiratory function. And so you want to establish that there's proper respiratory function and that the breath is like basically deep enough. You know, what can happen sometimes is the breath will become like kind of weak and shallow. And normally you would use something like thyme or cinnamon, cassia, you know, maybe even a little bit of oregano, but usually cinnamon like really strengthens the breath, like if the breath is weak and shallow. But in times of a head trauma, you really can't use something like that, because if there's an increase of circulation, it's potentially going to increase circulation in the brain. And so I use really strong anti-inflammatories, like I said, again, black cumin, the German chamomile, the yarrow. Then, excuse me. Then I use hyssop, and specifically like some form of hyssop. And in this particular case, not Solomon's hyssop, not a substitute for hyssop. And in this case, I wouldn't even use hyssop decumbens. I just use good old fashioned hyssop, you know, Bulgarian, Spanish, Croatian, but just the standard hyssop. And the reason being, you have a couple things that you're doing here. One, you're stimulating the medulla, right? And the medulla has to do with respiratory rate, respiratory function, and it has to do with circulatory function and like heart rate. And so sometimes with these brain injuries, part of it is the body is in a state where, you know, neurologically it's just not functioning like it should. And so the stimulation of the medulla helps the respiratory rate regulate. And then the other byproduct of it is you're opening up the chest, you're relaxing the diaphragm, you're relaxing the neck, which is going to allow blood to leave the head. So you have two parts. You're going to use anti-inflammatories. Any sort of chamomile would work, but I tend to go more German chamomile. But if you didn't have that, go with something blue or a chamomile. And then black cumin if you have it. And you can go pretty heavy with the chamomiles and the RO and all that, like topically and everything. And then have them inhale it. But if they're not even in a place to be able to inhale, because sometimes you're dealing with somebody who might not even be conscious, diffuse it in the room. Or the other thing that I do sometimes, like if you go into like a hospital room or something, is I put several drops on the blanket sheets, like on their chest, so that it's kind of diffusing up into their nose and their face. And just like maybe every hour or two, put 3 or 4 more drops in that area. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That helps.
Yeah. The thing is too with head traumas, like sometimes when little children have reactions to the vaccines and things, it's actually an allergic reaction that is so severe that it can actually cause brain injury. And then the other thing that we don't really take into account is a blow to the body can rattle the brain just like a blow to the head. Like, so say somebody came in and, ran into a person really super hard, like, mid torso. Yeah, it's like it's a blow to the torso, but still the head whipped a little bit. And so when we were treating whiplash patients, that was the piece that in severe cases, they would do evaluations to make sure that there was no brain trauma and everything. But, if somebody just had like run-of-the-mill car accident, that particular component was usually not addressed. And so anytime there's like a trauma where there's a blow where the body shakes a little bit, I always think of brain trauma. And anytime there's a blow to the body, and you can include this situation as well, relaxing the smooth muscle of the gut can be also helpful. Using that digestive calm on the abdomen can be very helpful for like regulating the body's processes and the nervous system and allowing the breath to work more. Because anytime the body's traumatized, the two areas that will tighten up are the gut and the throat. And here the throat is literally restricting blood movement to and from the head. So after that gets better, sometimes you could call that a treatment just unto itself, right? But over a period of time, sometimes I go further after they've kind of started pulling out of it, and I use some St. John's wort to do further detoxification. And I give them large dosages of lion's mane, that mushroom lion's mane.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason being that lion's mane will really help regenerate the brain tissue due to toxicity. And the toxicity here is potentially lack of oxygen for a period of time, and then blood that's been stagnating, and then poor detoxification. And so over a period of time, what can happen is the brain will still be a bit foggy because of the fluids being so stagnant up there. So after you get everything kind of moving, you can give them some pretty hefty dosages of lion's mane. A lot of times what I do is I buy it not in capsules, but just in powder, and then just take like a big spoonful and put it in like some hot water, like a tea, and then just have them shoot it down. And I would do that every day for probably like 30 days. And not having it in capsules significantly reduces the cost. And then the other way to do it is you can actually go to places that sell fresh mushrooms, like online, and you can buy large pieces of lion's mane that's just fresh, and you cut it up and put it in salad or saute it, and then just have them eat it, multiple times in a week, over a few weeks. And that's like huge dosages of lion's mane, very, very quickly and very cheaply. Like a big thing of lion's mane like this might be like 12, $15.
Okay.
And it's delicious.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. If you guys want, like, I'd have to look it up, but there is some site that I go through, and they sell, like, fresh mushrooms, and they send it to you, like, I think it's they overnight it with like an ice pack in it and everything, and so you can get fresh mushrooms and chop them up and cut them up and get it that way, and it's actually cheaper than buying powder and stuff. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Keep me posted on that. What happened to the person?
Oh, just recently I've had a couple people in my life who have fallen.
Yeah.
Or been in accidents, and I'd like to have something in my mind ready-made that I can just say, here we go.
Yeah. So like, that's the other thing. Like, if they've fallen and like they've hit their head and they've, like, pounded it on the cement, like you'll see that a lot with in sports, or like little kids playing, they'll fall and they'll get the goose egg on their head.
Yes.
I mean, you always want to make sure that there's not a concussion and everything, but you can literally put, it's going to turn the area blue, but you can put the German chamomile directly on the spot. And the idea is that the German chamomile is anti-inflammatory, but one of the things German chamomile is very good for is dispersing the fluid. So like when you have a lot of fluid retention in the area, it's pain relieving. It helps to clean up the debris from, like, you could call it the cellular debris that happens with inflammation and things like that in the area. But it also disperses the fluid probably better than anything else. And so, you want to take the swelling out of that particular area, but there's also swelling on the other side of the skull, on the inside of the brain. So inhaling it, a couple of drops of water, drinking it, the black cumin, like any of those things will start reducing the inflammation substantially. And this isn't the same kind of situation, but you could throw galbanum in that mix too, by the way, like maybe a few drops on the wrist.
For pain relief.
Just to take the body out of the tension from the injury. But like, I've literally had people who have had like a broken leg, or broken foot or something like that, a broken arm, and their arm is swelling and it's discolored and it's been that way and it's getting worse, and they've been to the doctor and everything, but the arm is still going through the phase of trauma. And I'll give them, like, I start giving them like 4 or 5 drops of black cumin, and have them put several drops of the galbanum on their wrist. And literally within like a couple of hours, the swelling starting to go down, the dark color is already starting to shift and change, and it's kind of regardless of where it's at in the body. And so it's harder to see the effects when you're treating the brain. And you have to keep into account, when somebody has a head trauma, that they're very, very fragile at the time. They don't have a strong constitution. And so sometimes the treatment has to be really small and just keep building and building and building. And as they get a little bit stronger, they can handle more, and then they can handle more, and they can handle more. And that goes for even energy. Like, there was an instance where a gentleman got into a bad motorcycle accident and hit his head really bad, You know, the first time I worked on him, and I worked on him a couple of times a day, every day for like about 2 weeks. The first day, I probably only energized him for like 20 seconds, right? And then by the end of the third day, it was up to about 90 seconds. By the end of the week, it was probably 5 to 7 minutes. But at first, his body could not handle any kind of energizing for any length of time because it was in such a fragile state that it would get congested almost like that. So you had to like work it a little bit and then stop, and then work it a little bit and then stop. And then, you know, you just kind of keep going back and forth. And so you almost have to kind of assess what state they're in. Like if they're conscious and they're up and they're moving and everything, that's one thing. But if they're in the hospital, they've lost consciousness, the treatment has to be less aggressive until they start responding. And then as they start getting stronger, you can keep going at it stronger and stronger, but you just got to give them a little bit of time for a little bit.
So galbanum has become one of my go-tos whenever there's someone with pain around me.
Yes, it's a bread and butter oil. Like it is. I mean, black cumin and galbanum for any sort of injury, regardless of the different kinds of pain. And did we post the different pain things that?
Yes.
So yeah, so we listed the different pains. That was a very simplified version of the different pains. You know, we didn't go through and do like, you know, the 4 to 7 step process of all the different things you could do for each one. But just to give people a general idea, you could add galbanum and black cumin to any of them and it would enhance it. Like, you know, regardless of what it is, especially in an acute trauma, one of my go-to things is galbanum, black cumin, and then for the emotional trauma / shock, tarragon. Like just boom, boom, boom. And before you even start treating the pain has usually substantially diminished just by doing that before you even go to, this is what I'm going to use for pain.
Are there any times galbanum should not be used?
I was going to make a joke and go, when you don't like the person. Pretty much every time.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to diminish the pain, and it takes it basically takes a kind of stress or tension out of the limbic system, like the limbic centers, and so it just eases the stress that the pain is bringing on the body, you know, the trauma, and so any sort of pain syndrome. I would use it. Like, you know, when I travel, I have like a 15 ml bottle that I have. And, you know, even if I'm just like on a plane, I'll take a couple of drops. And, you know, just because like the pain's going to be a little bit stiff and a little bit, you know, not being able to stretch for a little bit, or, you know, you're lugging bags around, your back might hurt, your shoulder might hurt, you know, whatever it is. And the thing that's nice about galbanum is it has the same kind of impact on emotional pain. And so if the person is going through a situation where they're having like an emotional response to something, or something was emotionally traumatizing, you know, be it an emotional incident or a conflict with somebody, again, tarragon calms down the emotions, and the galbanum calms down like the pain response itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Great. Thank you very much.
Like, so I mean, galbanum is in a lot of the old school anointing oils. And part of it is that when people would receive healings in the old days, or be in ceremony, you're transitioning out of your normal everyday mind or the state that you're in, and so the galbanum allows you to flow into that new place and the new state without it being like so traumatic. if that makes sense. Because even like when you're doing something and you're cultivating it, when you start to change significantly, it's still traumatizing to the body. Emotionally, mentally, you might be fine, but the body is not usually happy about it.
It lags behind.
And galbanum helps to facilitate that. And another one that kind of helps when you're making a transition from one state to another is that type of yarrow that's called milfoil, like milfoil. Milfoil can be really good. It's super anti-inflammatory. It's a good antispasmodic, but it also has an impact on that kind of state that we get in that's tied to like a limbic response to the pain response or the pain mechanism. And so can be very, very helpful. Like I have, I carry around marjoram, I carry around helichrysum, and then I have milfoil, and I have galbanum. Sometimes I take tarragon, sometimes I forget. And there's one other that I have. Oh, basil. Like I take basil with me. Pretty much every trip, I have several little bags of oils. Those are always in like my carry-on. So that, something happens, I drop a suitcase on my foot or something like that, I have the ability to treat it right there, right then.
Oh, great. Thank you much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Keep me posted on that if something comes up with somebody that you're treating with that.
Okay, great. I will. Thank you.
I back in the day, I led a research group. We did 10 months of working in rehabilitation facility dealing with head traumas. And it's hard to have a template to go, these are the things you do, because they're all very unique, because the injuries are different from, depending on how they got hurt and, what part of the head or face or whatever. But there are some things that are universal, and the ones that I just said, kind of universal.
And that's really what I'm asking for, because after you start this initial treatment, then you can figure out the more detailed part of it.
Yeah,
What
this
other
is
injuries
stabilized.
do they have? What else do I have to be aware of? But that write-off, if you get to that write-off, in the first 30 minutes, let's say, really de-escalate everything quickly.
Right. Yeah. Stabilizing in an acute injury is always, critical.
Yep.
So.
Oh, great. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
And then go ahead, Sandra, then Chris, then Marianne.
Hey, Sandra.
Hi, Greg. I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind.
Sure. Fire away.
The first one is, the last time we met for Q&A, you just mentioned in passing something called uvula for kind of a tight throat. And I went on your website and I couldn't find it in your list of oils or blends. And you said it was good for someone who had trouble swallowing.
Yeah, that's part of the Vital Center kit. We can make that available to you. I don't know that we sell it individually, but not a problem. We can make that happen.
Oh, thank you. And is it supposed to allow you to, or opens the throat up, or what?
Well,
exactly?
there's actually a mechanism that can get tight, and the swallowing mechanism actually can become a little bit of an issue. And so that blend has helped sometimes. The complication sometimes is that's actually also tied to medulla function as well. And the medulla doesn't necessarily affect the swallowing, but the swallowing will affect the medulla. And so there can start to be a weird thing that happens with the breathing. But the other thing to take into account with something like that is the vocal cords. And sometimes the vocal cords can go into spasm. And sometimes the vocal cords can have what you call a paradoxical response. So when they're supposed to open, they close. And when they're supposed to close, they open. And so a lot of times that can manifest as like a weird thing with swallowing, or it will present like asthma, but you don't respond to any of the asthmatic treatments. Like you wouldn't respond to an inhaler or a nebulizer or anything like that, because it's not actually the bronchioles or the lungs. It's actually the vocal cords. And so, sometimes when the swallowing mechanism is off, like you can use like that uvula blend, and then you can augment it with like probably Roman chamomile, or Cape chamomile. Those are usually the ones that I've used. Milfoil might work, German chamomile might work, but I usually use Roman chamomile. And I have them inhale it, and then I have them like swab it on the back of their throat, and even like sometimes put a couple drops in water and like gargle with it, or even like drink it. And when you're inhaling it, you put your awareness on your throat and your throat minor, like especially heavily on the throat minor.
Okay.
And over a period of time, like within a few treatments, you should usually notice a difference. If that's not working, the swallowing mechanism can also possibly have some issue down at the stomach or the diaphragm, but usually it's up high. Like almost every time it's up high. And so, I mean, if you treat it with that, I mean, even if you use, let me see what's in uvula.
Eucalyptus has helped me sometimes putting it on top of
eucalyptus, like larch would probably help. Hyssop would help, but also let me look up to see what's in uvula, because I am not recalling it off the top of my head. Yeah, it's got to be in one of those funky places. Yeah, so it's a lot of larch or Sitka. And then it's got galbanum, rosemary, hyssop, Palo Santo. It's a decent amount of ginger too, but it's heavy-handed on the larch or the Sitka. And then it's got a little bit of marjoram in it. But so everything there is relatively antispasmodic. And so you're trying to reduce the spasm and the tension there to allow the swallowing to happen. And then if it's non-responsive, I would actually look at the vocal cords. Like that's usually kind of my 1-2 punch. I had several people that, do you have any thyroid issues?
Yes, I do. I have hypothyroid.
It actually might be a vocal cord issue. Usually when people have vocal cord issues, it's in conjunction with a thyroid issue. Have you ever had a procedure or anything up on your thyroid?
No, I haven't.
That reduces the chance. Like but still, do the uvula. But if you have large or Sitka, you could start with that and see if that helps, and then rotate to the chamomile, and then if not, you could go to the blend. So you could just see if that resolves it. And then if not, you could move towards the blend.
All right, thank you.
You're so welcome. You had another question?
Yeah, I have lots of them. I was wondering, we had talked, well, you've talked quite a few times about Monarda and how it's antiviral. You mentioned actually in swallowing it. I was wondering, is it also effective just to inhale it?
Yeah, it will still work. I would say like the most potent way to do it is to ingest it. But if you don't want to ingest it, probably try to do like maybe 30 to 40 long, slow, deep breaths. They don't have to be all at once. Like you could break it up like morning and night or something like that, but try to get in a decent amount. Now, if you want to augment that, you could add like putting on the body, like on the chest or the back or something like that. Or you could put on the bottom of the feet or the wrist. You could try bay laurel, eucalyptus or radiata. What's the other one? Bay laurel, radiata. I'm drawing a blank right now. Ravensara.
Yeah, Ravensara.
Yeah. All three very, very potent antivirals. Not as potent as Monarda, but like when you start blending the antivirals, pretty good. You can always work thyme in there. Thyme is always good. Even lemongrass or cinnamon can be good, but the really strong antivirals are Monarda is number one, and then those other three.
Yeah, I was thinking we'll be on an airplane for a long time. And I was thinking since, the present Omicron is much more of an upper respiratory infection. I was thinking if we just kind of inhaled frequently during, the flight, do you think that would be effective?
So that's helpful. And let me give you another thing. If that's what you're shooting for, is let me draw up my notes again here real quick. Okay, so things like also like black spruce and Siberian fir would be super good as prevention for exposure, like when you're traveling like that. Okay. And the idea is that there's like the chemistry of those plants are very protective to the respiratory tract, and specifically to potential exposures to like viruses and bacteria, environmental toxins or factors, whatever you want to call it. And so that is that thing that we call respiratory protection, but you could use those oils by themselves. Black spruce is something that's been in a lot of kits. You might have that or the Siberian fir. And it could be either the premium or the regular. It doesn't have to be, a super particular one. Very helpful when it comes to like protecting the respiratory tract.
Okay. So would you take those separately or would you combine them
those two you could combine, but like I would probably, like if you're really concerned about it, I would choose one like the black spruce or the fir, and then I'd probably rotate also something like the eucalyptus radiata or the ravensara, and then inhale the Monarda, and I would call that pretty solid.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, like when we travel, I rotate between immunity support, panacea, and that blend of vigor, vigor. I think that was in one of the kits. Yeah. But vigor has the bay laurel, the ravensara, the eucalyptus radiata, and it has neoli, which is also very strengthening to the immune system. And it's got a couple other things, but it's a lot of antivirals that makes your body strong, but it also has that antiviral effect. Okay. And so any version of any of these, you're pretty solid. You're pretty solid. I always like the idea of rotating some of them just because, you know, it might be strengthening the body in a particular area, but you might still have a little bit of a weakness in another area. So going through and rotating them gives you like a really broad spectrum ability to fight off viruses.
Okay, thank you. That which brings me to another thought.
Mm-hmm.
Can one habituate to an essential oil if they use them often or all the time?
Can they what?
Can they habituate to an oil? So if you take them too often, they become ineffective.
I don't know that they would become ineffective, but sometimes the area that you're treating might be strong enough, but some of the surrounding functions for whatever you're treating might be lacking a little bit. So over a period of time, what happens is you might only make so much progress with it before you needed to rotate it and bring in other components. And then you could always go back to it and it would actually augment the primary thing you're using. And so one of the things that I always like to do is, you know, have the primary, but rotate some of the other things around so that you get like a broader, fuller spectrum of whatever it is you're trying to treat, be it immunity or pain or something psychological, so that you're getting more than just doing the one thing. I mean, doing one thing is better than nothing, but like rotating some of them is actually tends to be more effective.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Where are you going to go? You're going to travel?
We're going to Europe.
Oh boy, yeah.
For a month, and yeah, it's not good timing, but there seems to be never good timing. So
yeah, I mean, it's better than it was. Like it's better than it was 3 months ago or 6 months ago. I mean, take all the things that we've talked about. I mean, I'd get some like zinc lozenges.
Yeah, I've got those.
And maybe a little bit of vitamin C, like emergency or something. And, you know, just stay on it all. And, you know, if it seems risky, you know, just take precautions and yeah, it should be okay. I've known a few people that have gone over to Europe in the last like 3 or 4 weeks, and they seem to be okay.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
And then go ahead, Chris, then Marianne.
Hey, Chris.
Oh, hey, Greg. Hey, Sam.
Hey.
Hey, I'm trying to help a friend out. She has longstanding asthma, and that seems to also have some correlation with her inability to express herself. So I'm trying to create oils with pranic healing, and I want some direction on what to concentrate on.
So when you've been doing treatment, is she responding, or is it staying the same? Is it getting worse?
So I've only treated her once. And she shared that she felt more calm and peace, you know, although the next day, her asthma started to flare up. Oh,
so
part
of what happens with asthma, what's that?
But she also felt peaceful at the same time that the asthma is safe.
So what happens with asthma is because the breath is short and rapid, is it will magnify like stress, and it magnifies lower emotions because the breath is short and rapid. Like, so it's just whatever that is, it just keeps magnifying whatever is going on like in the solar plexus. And so sometimes what I do with asthma is, you know, you go through and you do the things that you're trying to treat. You're trying to reduce bronchial spasms and spasms in the smooth muscle of the lungs. And sometimes there's inflammation, and sometimes there is like a trigger or response to something in the environment. And then, like you said, there can be magnified emotions. And so you can start with something just very simple, like you're going through and doing this. Something like larch or hyssop can be very good for asthma. I tend to give people with asthma a few drops of frankincense in water on a daily basis. And the reason for this is that they've done studies where if you take frankincense internally, your respiratory tract becomes less reactive to environmental factors when ingesting it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's, pollen or mold or, whatever it is, but sometimes the environmental factors can also be a stressful situation at work or a difficult person they're having to deal with in the family. And like you said, it can be that they feel trapped or they have the inability to express themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I give them the frankincense. I usually use something like hyssop or larch. Sitka can even work, but the bronchioles blend would work really well for that.
Oh, okay.
Because it's literally about reducing spasms in the bronchioles. But then I usually also do either Gilead or Palo Santo. And the idea would be to rapidly clean out the solar plexus. So you could have them inhale either one of those with their awareness on the front and back solar plexus, or if you're doing pranic healing, do really substantial cleansing, the rapid cleansing of the solar plexus or rapid cleansing of the internal organs, where you do green and orange into the front and back solar plexus for a long period of time, and then blow it out and then do it again, and then blow it out and then do it again. Like do that multiple times. But the key is to clean out the solar plexus and to relax the diaphragm. And so sometimes the diaphragm is in a significant spasm. The larch, the hyssop, the Sitka, the bronchial blend would probably be your best bet. Should help to relax the diaphragm and relax the bronchioles. But you'll still need to clean out the emotions from the solar plexus. And sometimes you still need to do more, but that is a really good starting off place. So then the other thing is quercetin, the crude vitamin C, quercetin.
Yes, I actually asked her to purchase that yesterday.
Okay, good.
And she
3
did.
capsules. Yeah, 3 capsules, 2 to 3 times a day.
3 capsules. Okay.
Yeah. Like at first, go a little heavy. And then as the person stabilizes, you can diminish the dosage somewhat, but you're going to go heavier than what the bottle says. And then another factor is always like some magnesium. The magnesium can be very helpful. Garlic, like 1,000 milligrams of garlic, deodorized garlic, can be helpful. But the reason the garlic is helpful is it's cleansing. And so if you're using these oils, you're kind of doing what the garlic would do. But if you're wanting to go deep with how you treat the person, you could use garlic. Long-term, really super chronic asthma, I usually also include 3,000 milligrams of cordyceps. That is a long-term treatment. They probably won't see the benefit for about 20 to 30 days, but it does help substantially. But the number one supplement would be quercetin. Yeah, but all of that combined should knock it out. The only times where, there can always be physical factors that make it exaggerated, but sometimes there's unconscious emotional factors. It's usually a trauma. And so if they're not responding to all of this, I kind of will switch over and go to using like helichrysum or poplar, something like that, or even the galbanum, and have them inhale with their awareness on their chest. And you could look at it a couple of different ways, right? One is, I got to release the trauma. But part of what happens could be that, say there's a situation in the family and they're having a hard time with Uncle Bob is a jackass. You know, that's just, they keep going, well, you know, he's just misunderstood or da 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 da. Part of what's happening is they're trying to rationalize something that is uncomfortable, and they're having a hard time integrating it. And so every time they start to relax, they'll start to integrate it. And it's like, but if I acknowledge Uncle Bob is, you know, not nice, that means maybe I'm saying something inappropriate, or people are going to judge me, or I'm going to hurt Bob's feelings, or the family might judge it, you know, when really all you're needing to do is to get that person to integrate something. And so different oils are good for integrating. Hyssop can do it, tobacco can do it, cinnamon can do it, but a real sleeper that is super good for integrating something into the emotional heart that we really don't think about very much is different forms of pine. Pine is incredibly good for integrating something that's a little bit difficult into the heart, or something that maybe you're just struggling with or wrestling with. Pine also has an impact on the respiratory tract. Pine also has an antispasmodic effect on the bronchioles and things like that. And so it can overlap in treating respiratory conditions and issues, as well as having the emotional impact. And any of the pines will work, but there's this one really odd type of pine called jack pine. And I'm pretty, is it even on the site? It might not even be on the site.
Jack, like J-A-C-K?
Yeah, like the name Jack, like,
okay.
you know, basically jack pine. It's really good for, and usually I just use it in some blends and things, but any of the pines will work. Like, I would just say use whatever pine you have. But like, if you're having this and you're needing to deal with like patients, and or, you know, somebody who's really needing to you know, address this, I would probably get some jack pine. It's not expensive. It's just it's rare, but it's not costly. Like, it costs
Okay.
just like all the other types of pine. I mean, and if it's not on the site, we'll get
Thanks,
it on
Sam.
tonight. Yeah, we'll get it on tonight.
Nice. Thank you. And you also talked about, is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
Those
I
are all
think you
pretty
nailed
good.
it, that there's an underlying trauma.
Yeah.
You know, there's something I couldn't put my finger on, but
Yeah.
it's trauma related.
And sometimes they can't even put their finger on it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I'll give you an example. Like, I was treating this person many years ago, and same idea. Like, to the point where he would get like a lot of fluid in his lungs. I would send him to the doctor. I was like, I'm starting to be concerned about congestive heart failure. Like, that's one of the signs of congestive heart failure.
Okay.
He would go, and it was not an issue. It was just always this respiratory thing. And you know, we would go through and do healings, and I do psychological healings, and, you know, we do all these things, and he just, like, I get him feeling better for a little while, but then it would come back, right? And so that's usually something unconscious. And so, you know, just being curious, like, sometimes the healing will address it even if they're not aware of it, but like, sometimes you got to get their mind to embrace that piece of it to really to be able to resolve it, because, you know, the unconscious might be trying to keep it down. And so if you bring it to the light, sometimes it becomes easier to release. And so I would start asking this guy like just all kinds of questions, like, what about this? What about that? Could not find anything. And I really got to the point where I was like, it could just be one of those cases where the person is responding kind of in a mediocre way. Like, I think I could do better, but like, I'm just not. Like, I I pulled out all the stops and it wasn't really working. And so I asked him a bunch of things about his past, about his childhood. Nothing was coming up. And, did something happen to you? Did somebody, I go, I don't need details, just give me an idea. And we'd get to nothing. And I kind of just let it go. Like I just, okay, well, we'll just move on. And we started just having this really kind of casual conversation. And, because I had been asking all these questions about his childhood, he started talking about these things. And he grew up on a ranch, and so his family had lots of different kinds of farm animals. And so I was like, oh, so you took care of the animals? I started asking him questions about the animals and everything. And he was like, yeah. And then he kind of went into this thing about how if his dad got mad at one of the animals, his dad would punch the animal in the face.
Oh, God.
And I go, did that happen often? And he goes, whenever he got mad. And I go, was he mad at the animal? He goes, yeah, it was usually when he was mad at the animal. Sometimes he would just be mad, but... And I go, did this happen like more than twice? And he goes, oh yeah, it happened, 10 times a year. Like, it happened often. And so I go, but he never hit you. He never did anything. He said, nope. And I go, but there was always the threat that if you got out of line, you were going to get smacked. And he got quiet and he goes, I never thought about it that way. But yes, after that, he started getting better. He had to acknowledge that because his brain wasn't letting him think, like, to allow that in, to have something negative be about his dad. And I go, you can still love your dad and then not like that part. Like those two can both exist. Like you can love him, look up to him and everything, and not like that part. And so, after that, a little bit of psychotherapy, and all of a sudden it started getting better. And so my point being that sometimes it's not what happened, it was the lack of something happening, like, maybe attention from a parent or the implication that something would happen, and they don't always, they're not always able to verbalize it. And so you don't have to pinpoint what it is, but when you're working with the oils, when you're doing energy healing, whatever, just be curious. Just start asking questions. Well, tell me what it was like when you were growing up. And a lot of times when you're doing the healing or having them breathe with the oils, it will make its way to the surface. And all you have to do, you don't have to fix it. Just hold the space as it comes out and keep doing the healing. With whatever the healing is. Just hold the space and just keep doing what you're doing.
Will do. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
One more quick question.
Yeah, fire away.
So I've been doing on my shoulder, I've been doing self-healing, and something funny is happening when it's painful, just in the front side. Seems like there's a gremlin there who doesn't like any light being shown on, projected at it. Is that
where's it at? Where's it at?
My right shoulder in front. Where the impingement is. So when I do self-healing, when I'm starting to energize it, it's like, you're not doing that.
Try putting pink, like pink or electric pink. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Try that.
Thank you. I will.
Another way to do it is, and you can do this with oil or you can do this with energy healing. Like say you take the oil and you go, okay, and you got it in your ointment. And then as you start to apply it to the area, Lord God, thank you for blessing the shoulder with divine love, divine mercy, say soft, loving things.
Okay.
And the thought form or the elemental that's stuck in there. It's usually an elemental, by the way.
Yep. Okay.
That's what either transforms it or kicks it out.
Thank you.
So you could do that with healing, with energy, or you could do that with applying the oil.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
And then you were going to put on the site the Glory of Lebanon scrub, salt scrub.
Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah.
Can you do camphor too?
Oh yeah.
Camphor?
Did we not have camphor on there? Yeah. We'll get that on there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Love you.
Love you guys too.
Are you talking camphor salt scrub or your 15 ml camphor?
Salt scrub. I saw the 15
Okay.
ml already. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, don't you love camphor? Oh God, I love
It's
camphor.
like magic.
It is totally like
those
magic.
things that are projected at me. It seems like
Yeah.
when I'm like
So amazing.
soaking,
Yeah.
my rashes go away. It's like, oh, that's someone else's projection. Okay.
Yeah. We burn it around here, like when we want to like clean up the space and everything. We just burn several sticks of camphor in all the rooms, and I even do it sometimes out by the front door.
Oh, I do it too. I do it in their walkway by the yard.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so
in
much.
the old days, they used to clean out haunted houses by burning hunks of camphor.
I believe it.
Yeah.
It works
Right.
amazingly.
Problem with the hunks of camphor is they light up. Speaking from personal experience,
Mhm.
they light up a big flame, and they put off a black smoke that really is not good for the ceiling.
Anyway, thank you again.
You're so welcome. Tell Chris hi.
I will. Thank you.
And then go ahead, Mary Ann, then Ralph.
Hey, Marianne.
Guess I'll get some camphor.
Yeah. How are you, Marianne?
I'm fine. Welcome back to you
Thank
and
you,
Sam.
thank you.
And before I ask my question, I'd also like to thank you for, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, the Weizsäck.
Oh, the Weizsäck. Yeah.
Celebration. That was so powerful.
Oh, good.
And so pleasurable. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And it was very lovely. I am
the strongest full moon of the year. Yeah.
I wish we had it more often.
Yeah, no joke.
I received the Still Point BT lotion.
Oh, good.
And I wasn't sure how to use it. And I have been applying it to my shoulders, my upper arms that I have all the pain in.
Right.
Also my joints, and my legs, on the joints. Should I be applying it?
So where was the nerve compromised? Is it just both the arms and the legs, or is it just like one of them? I can't remember.
The worst part is the right shoulder.
So do the shoulder and then do like down the arm and like up into the shoulder and neck.
Yeah, I did that.
Okay.
And
keep doing it over and over again.
This the right hand was also, it wasn't exactly numb, but it felt cold a lot. And since I started applying the lotion, it's interesting. I now get pain in my fingers. It feels like arthritic pain, but that's new.
So what's like happening is when nerve becomes compromised, it actually kind of goes to sleep.
Yeah.
And so when you start kind of reviving it, it goes through that period of like, when you've been sitting on your foot and you get off and it starts to wake up and it kind of hurts for a little bit.
Yeah.
That can happen. So keep doing it, because as you keep unwinding it, the pain should pass, but that means that the nerve was really compromised and was like asleep, or there was so much pressure on it that I mean, it still means asleep, but the nerve
Right.
just wasn't able to flow properly.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping was happening. And also the muscles in both arms are compromised.
Yeah.
I mean, the right side is, I mean, I did injure it many years ago, but it seems like both sides are compromised. And I also received the larch, and I'm inhaling that at least a half hour every day.
Oh, beautiful. So I wanted you to have that as a replacement for the hyssop.
Okay. Yeah, and I get mixed up. I inhale it. Well, I take it when I go for walks.
Yeah,
and I'm challenging myself up a steep hill.
Oh,
and
great.
So I will breathe in, inhale it, and then breathe out through my mouth going up the hill. Does it matter if you breathe out through your nose or your mouth? What's the difference?
Better to do the mouth, but since you're exercising while you're doing it, you could do either way.
Either way. Okay.
Yeah.
And should I be doing more than a half hour or?
No, that's pretty solid.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
right.
Really solid.
Okay. Thank you very much.
How are you feeling? You sound stronger than normal.
But I feel wonderful.
Good.
In one aspect, my energy is increased.
Good.
And just walking, I felt, especially since I increased the usual, I have a new route, but I felt like my body was aligning differently.
Yes.
And
that still point takes a bunch of agitation out of a bunch of different systems in the body. But part of what it does is it helps the nerves to function better.
Yeah. It was wonderful. I am, however, under an awful lot of stress.
Okay.
And I think
you can inhale it. I know it's already in an ointment, but you can still inhale it a little bit from the bottle. I mean, it's going to smell like the witch hazel and stuff as well, but or probably a better thing to do, rub a little bit on your chest so that you're breathing.
Are you talking about the lotion or the larch?
Yeah,
the lotion.
The still point. Yeah.
Okay.
It should help reduce the stress somewhat.
Okay, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
But I feel physically, I feel much better.
Yeah, you sound great, Marianne.
Yeah, I feel good.
Good.
So thank you.
You're so welcome. Yeah, keep us posted.
Okay, I will.
And then go ahead, Ralph.
Hey, Ralph.
Hey, Greg. First off, thanks for the self-esteem class.
I can barely hear you. Hold on, let us play with.
I'll get closer.
Oh, there you go.
Good. Okay. First off, thanks for the self-esteem class. That was great.
Oh, good. Yeah. So part 2 and part 3 are in what is it? The 9th and 10th of July.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we'll have the oil list out for you here shortly.
Thank you. Those little 2 mil roller balls. The 2 mil is still a pain in the ass, but I love the roller balls because I can pass out, drop the bottle, and
right. Now you see why I like the roller balls myself.
Yeah. That's good stuff. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the processes for the self-esteem class. First off, when doing the materialization breath, you have us hold the bottle down at our chest level over the heart, and then put our head down and inhale. My head doesn't go all the way down to my chest. So when I inhale.
So don't compromise the neck. Like, so what happens, like if you can't just go down to where it's comfortable. And so the only reason to be holding the bottle like that is just to get yourself, because you start spacing out, it just keeps you in the pattern or the momentum. But if your neck can only go down so far, then just hold it out like this and then just inhale and then up and then inhale. And,
Okay.
And so there's one person that I have that they're they've got like a lot of bone on bone in their neck. And so I just have them like just kind of tilt their head, not even moving their neck. They're just kind of tilting the head like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good, thanks.
Yeah.
That was kind of my inclination, but I wanted to check with you.
Yeah. But better to do that than to cause irritation in the neck. Like, the benefit doesn't outweigh irritating the neck and causing the neck to be, inflamed or in spasm or anything like that. And so, always err on caution.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
In segment 4, using the pavasymbaba oil, entanglements was the number C. Ways of thinking that take you away from the light and get you attracted to darkness. What I started doing, what started coming up for me was specific ways I would think of that would attract me into darkness.
Oh yeah. Great.
As I was doing it, I would be thinking of, okay, I focus on this or I focus on that, and it drags me away from the light.
Right.
So that's an okay thing to do for those.
I think that's a great thing. Like, I kind of do like a version of that. Like, I don't even necessarily think it out so much like how you were doing the detail. I think that's great, but it's a little bit harder to like teach. And sometimes I'm not even quite sure. So, because like for my mind, like I would say, I don't always trust my mind. You know what I mean? Like, my mind can talk itself into something or justify something. And so like sometimes I'm not sure about a situation, like, is this good? Is this bad? I think it's good, but I'm kind of not sure. And so, doing the materialization breath helps bring clarity. But like using the Padmasambhava oil, for example, is I would just sit and think of the situation and inhale the oil and let it detangle the things that it needs to detangle. And the parts that survive that process are truth or closer to the truth, And so even if you can't like think out like this is negative and this is positive, or this pulls me away and this doesn't, if you're just not sure about it, then hold your attention on that area, think about it, and then do the inhalation and just see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that idea.
Yeah. Well, these are things that when I get to thinking about them, it's like, okay, this is from my past, and I'm definitely headed down a rat hole. And who does this belong to, and where the hell did this come from? Right.
I think that's a beautiful way to say it, because the thing is sometimes things get set in motion and we didn't necessarily choose it. Like it's something that kind of happened, or you're following somebody's lead, or it's a pattern in the family, or you had a weird reaction with something that happened with work and a friend, and it just kept like building on each other, on one thing after another. And pretty soon, it's the frog in the boiling pot. Like it doesn't know that all of a sudden the pot is boiling, because you got it there in a bunch of little movements. And so to the mind doesn't recognize it because of all the little movements. And so to go through and to allow it to reboot. So here's the other thing that's kind of interesting with that is whenever you start to unwind something like that, you always can fall back on treating what we would call allostasis, which is just basically stimulating the body's ability to shift or change. And so oils that are always good for that are Palo Santo, Gilead, and aloes. Like those are just rock stars when it comes to helping to facilitate you going through some sort of changing process. So change can be releasing something, doing a new behavior, becoming more aware and changing your actions, changing your thoughts, just not engaging it anymore.
Yep.
Any version of that, like
Yeah.
what happens is we might have the realization, but then there's other parts of us that go, yeah, I realize it, but I'm still not going to change. You know, like you're not doing it consciously, but the body's resisting, the emotions or the mind might resist. So the Palo Santo, the Gilead, the aloes all help you to go, I'm going to let go and I'm going to do something different. I don't even know what.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, depending on the situation, sometimes other things can work, but those are like bread and butter for allostasis, like bread and butter.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Last question, segment number 5. Part C, identification with a person situation conflict. You had started out on the original PDF you sent out with just the little short section number 1. And then in the class, you added section 2, which was 5 parts. And I found
which part is it?
Segment 5.
5.
Okay. Part C, identification.
Okay. Okay.
You had started out with just part C number 1 on the first PDF. And then when it came to the class, you added part 2 and the A, B, C, D, E afterwards. I found that number 2 on there, the 5-part number 2, to
Let
be.
me look it up here real quick.
Yeah.
And it's self-esteem. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
And Ralph, did you get the updated workbook? PDF?
Yes, I did.
Okay, great.
Self-esteem, I'm not seeing it.
Thank you, Sam.
Mm-hmm. Greg, you might need me to send you an older version.
Oh, okay. Because I'm not even seeing the new version. I know that we have it, but.
Letty, would you mind sending me that booklet, the self-esteem part?
Oh, here it is. Here it is. Okay, gotcha. Right in front of my eyeballs. Okay, so segment 5. Okay, so what was your question?
Number 2.
Number 2.
Number 2. A
Palo
through
Santo.
B. Yeah. And you had us using the detachment blend. I found that whole thing to be that particular section to be really calming.
Yeah.
You know, for lack of a better term. So I'm taking and doing just number 2 a couple of times a week.
Yeah. So that kind of is in the same vein of what I was just talking about with the allostasis.
Okay.
It's helping to shift or change, and because it's under identification, because you're literally changing what you're identifying with, right? Mm-hmm. And so that step number 2,
yeah,
it totally stand on its own. And so I said Gilead, Palo Santo, aloes, detachment would fall in that same category.
Yeah, detachment was what was in the kit, so that's what I'm using.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. You easily could be doing that all the time.
Yeah.
Like we were just on a trip last couple of days, and sometimes when sometimes when I'm traveling, just even the idea of travel, you know, you're dealing with changing environments and stuff, and if I'm having a little bit of hard time with traveling, I'll use one of those oils, and a lot of times I use Palo Santo.
Yeah.
And it just allows me to like travel like in a way that's very fluid. You know, so it's the same idea. Like it could be different situations, different environments, different emotional states, different perceptions, all of these things. they all kind of fall in where you're needing to shift and change. And so all of those oils that we talked about work really well for that.
Okay, so I've got Palo Santo spray.
Yeah, that would work. Yep.
So if I have a choice between using Palo Santo spray and detachment, which one's my A choice?
They both work good.
Okay, so they're both equally powerful.
Well, the Palo Santo spray's also got like holy water in it and lithium, and so it's been augmented in a different way. Like, you know, it's a different kind of blend of sorts.
Oh, and added some octane booster to it. Okay.
Yeah. So I think you're solid with whichever one you choose there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Okay. Catch you later.
Okay, take care.
And then go ahead, Lala.
Hey, Lala.
Hello. How are you guys? I'm doing really well.
How's
Thank you so much. It's really good. It's getting beautiful. Thank you so much.
Good.
I do have a series of questions, and please tell me when my time is up. Okay. A 25-year-old male, my client, is having some premature ejaculation issues. He just came out with you know, his sexual orientation to his family. He's gay, and he did have a couple of sort of traumas around his sexuality, where his older sister caught him like looking at pornography or whatever when he was younger, and it was a very uncomfortable situation where he made this big ruse, this big lie, and so he's sort of stuck in this energy. So just wondering if there's anything there.
Yeah, so I can give you one or two things, or I can give you a series of things. Like, let me just find this real quick. Hold on.
Sure.
Here we are. Okay, so okay, I'm going to do this a couple of ways. Let's talk about it just like minimal approach, and then a like more involved approach, right? So minimal approach would be to use, have him do a lot of inhalations with nutmeg, and his awareness on the sex chakra. And then, I mean, like 15, 20 long, slow, deep inhalations. Then I would do I keep saying I'm going to do a short version, but it might just be better to do the long version. Okay, so let's do it like this. I'm going to send it over to Samantha, and I'm going to talk you through it.
Okay.
So that way you don't have to worry about writing it down.
Okay.
Hold on. Okay. So she'll post it here for you. And so here the notes say sexual instinct.
Yeah.
And so sexual instinct is actually tied to the part 3 of the self-esteem. And so it's tied to your physical self-esteem and how you present yourself to the world. And so sexual instinct is not just about the sexual act or sexuality, but it's also about your presentation, how you interact with people, even things that you're drawn to, patterns that you do. Like you could almost say even like the car you buy is tied to your sexual instinct. You know, it's still like representation of you, so to speak, right? And so you're wanting to go through and reset or reboot this in a way that allows him to keep his identity, or let him define himself, but undo some of the conditioning that's happened from be it social interaction or how he feels about himself, whatever it is, kind of doesn't matter, right? And so the first part you're going through and you're shifting through the agitation. I'd say for him, this is probably the biggest one right off the bat. Is if you only had him do one thing, it would probably be this for a while. And then the next step would be to raise vibration. And raised vibration simply means you're increasing soul contact and improving function, right? Then from there, you're regenerating, and regenerating is another way of saying regeneration is re-education. You're re-educating the neurological function here, and you're re-educating the psychological function. Regeneration can have a lot of different meanings depending on what and where you're treating something and the kind of damage that you're dealing with. It could be increased blood flow, it could be increased nerve flow, it could be all kinds of things. Here, you're looking to regenerate the neurological function, which means re-education, and also the psyche, like how he thinks about it. And so then you start getting into the real nitty-gritty of it. The purification is going to be done with cassia. Very important step. It strengthens, it gives him a little bit thicker skin when expressing himself outward. It still is very activating to the heart. It allows him to integrate things into the heart. The calamus is fortifying and reduces the fear that can happen from presenting himself to the world, or just through any sort of fears that he might have with sexual expression, right? Then the allostasis, here is aloes, but you could use Palo Santo, you could use detachment, or you could use Gilead as well.
Okay.
And then the last is stimulation of the sexual instinct. And cassia and cinnamon are real similar, but they still do have slightly different energetics. So cinnamon can be used, but here I tend to use that blend Abramelin, which is several types of like cinnamon, cassia, myrrh, calamus. It's a bunch of these components all mixed together. Can you get me? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. That's pretty solid for that kind of issue. I've used it tons of times.
Okay. My next question is...
And it will probably make his partner very happy. If you understand my meaning.
Yes. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay, next question. I did a healing on a client. She was perimenopausal, having very strenuous perimenopausal symptoms.
Okay.
She decided to go on bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, which is the pellet insertion in her hip. Sure. She got her symptoms alleviated almost immediately. Mm-hmm. She was feeling very well. We did a healing on her, and we actually did the healing on her 23-year-old self. It was like some inner child work, where I was clearing some energy out of her first and second chakra, and she, in the process, felt like how she described it as a sharp pain, like a lightning bolt into her second chakra, into her pelvis. And while I was doing the healing, and because I was removing a lot of energy, and then it created a menses. So just to be on the safe side, I asked her to get her blood labs, and the doctor said there's no reason on that end where it would no hormones are out of balance. And she also got a pelvic ultrasound, and that's perfectly normal. Do you have any thoughts that?
Yeah, a lot of times that happens when the nerves of the lower lumbar can be freed up, specifically like when the psoas is released. And so I wouldn't read a whole lot into that. It's very common that whenever you release the psoas, the cycle will begin, even if it's not, time for the cycle, or like here we're in, premenopause or menopause. You still can have a cycle from time to time, and you go through and release the psoas, and these things can happen. Like it really probably has no meaning unless there starts to be a lot of irregular cycle, and if there starts to be a lot of activity over a prolonged period of time, then there's something up. But that the hormones are all balanced, there's no deficiencies, there's no real issue going on. Most likely it was a shift in the pelvic floor and the psoas, and that can happen.
Okay.
It's actually quite common. Yeah.
Okay. The next is that I did a healing on a client of mine. I've been working with her. She's actually another healer. Mm-hmm. She tells me that she has been receiving like energetic downloads. This is how she describes it: energetic downloads of where she feels an activation, and then like a trembling sensation from head to toe, as if divine energy is descending through her central channel. She's received over 50 of them, and she says they can last anywhere from 30 to 50 minutes. And I'm just wondering, do you think that there's anything she can do to augment that? Should she work on clearing her channel, more conductivity to the divine? What do you think is the best?
Is she losing chunks of time?
No, not losing chunks of time. She's really cognitive, and seems fairly grounded. But she is, it's like she describes it as like this connection with the star, with the galactic connection, from like sort of like a DNA upgrade, cellular activation kind of thing. But I just was wondering if there was anything that we can do to support her in.
Clean out the arms and legs.
Okay.
Use mugwort. You could use Palo Santo. You could use chocolate root cleanser. I would probably use mugwort, but if you didn't have that, the other ones would be helpful. Put it on the joints. Have her do it. Have her do it daily.
Okay.
Okay. We got to switch over to the
Sure.
other study group. So
yes. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. I hope that helps. Keep us posted. And so we're going to switch over to the angel study group. So you're more than welcome to join us, even if you haven't taken an angel class or anything like that. Feel free to join us. And we're also back on next week. So it's nice to get back into the swing of things, and we'll talk soon.